was an American dream, right? So it's like, wow, being an employee, can climb the corporate ladder was not the only way. You could be an entrepreneur, just like many other successful entrepreneur, famous people in the Valley, and you could try.
You are listening to the Sure Shot Entrepreneur, a podcast for founders with ambitious ideas. Venture capital investors and other early believers tell you relatable, insightful, and authentic stories to help you realize your vision. Welcome to the Sure Shot Entrepreneur. Today's guest is Eugene Zhang at TSV Capital. TSV Capital is based in the Silicon Valley and makes investments in startups with a strong technology background. Eugene, welcome to the Sure Shot Entrepreneur.
Thank you, Galbi. Thank you for having me on.
Tell us about yourself, starting with how you came to the US.
Yes, I was born in China, Shanghai, and then went to Xi'an for my elementary and high school, and then spent 8 years at Beijing Tsinghua University, and then spent 1 year in Japan. 1990, I came to New York for 1 year, and then after that, 30 years in Silicon Valley.
So 30 years in the Silicon Valley is a long time. A lot of things must have changed in those 3 decades. How is Silicon Valley different today compared to when you first arrived?
Yeah, so big changes. Personally gone through 3 down and up cycles. For young people who've been in the Valley for less than 10 years, mostly they saw the uptrend, right, until the pandemic. So the activity, the investment, in the investment community were defined as angel investor and the Series A, B investor changes so much. Money is more plenty. That's just one aspect.
Yeah, fundraising was much harder 30 years ago. There were far fewer venture capital firms, and amount of capital available was also far too limited. Now it's a lot easier to raise money, and it's much easier to be an entrepreneur with all the resources available, all the cloud resources and those kind of things.
Personally, I was very fortunate during the 30 years. I have 2 tracks. One is the employee, very fortunate working with some smart people and also very nice people. So, I work at a Sun Microsystem, Cisco system, and little Juniper Networks, all with the help with people I work with in my previous job. They helped me, introduce me to the new companies. On the second path as an entrepreneur, also I was 100% work with the people in the previous jobs. So when I started my own company in the early 2000s, those days fundraising was very, very difficult. So we couldn't very immediately go arrange a meeting with any San Hill VCs. So we rely on community like the Acorn campus, those successful entrepreneurs, Taiwan, for example, to turn to them for seed money. It's a very different situation. And when you get a meeting with the investor, it was a big deal. Usually you put on calendar for 3 weeks away in the future, all that. It was a big deal back then.
Yeah, things happen much more quickly these days. Most of the meetings happen in less than 2 weeks. You don't have to wait for a month to travel to Sand Hill Road to meet a VC. How did you start TSV Capital?
Yeah, so I've been fortunate working with the big companies. And then my first with my foot into the entrepreneur was when I worked at a Sun Microsystem, worked with a peer. He was developing a piece of software related to today's system Verilog. So that was the first experience. Later on, the company was acquired. It was like an American dream, right? So it's like, wow, you don't have being an employee working, climbing the corporate ladder was not the only way. You could be an entrepreneur, just like many other successful entrepreneur, famous people in the Valley, and you could try. So that's the first wake up. Later on, I did my own company. And after Juniper, I started to be angel investor myself after 2000, being active as an angel, mostly by friends, schoolmates, people I know. They say, hey, maybe you have some money. Why don't you put some money in my company? That got us started. So that after certain deals in 2010, right, that was after the financial crisis. It was the right time with quite a few schoolmates, the Tsinghua schoolmates, to form this GP LP structure as a venture fund. It was very tiny. 2010 was only $4 million. It's a community-based or Tsinghua alumni in the Valley. They financially have some freedom. And then we started working on this part-time. Yeah, that's a history.
Yeah, I have a $4 million fund as well. And
okay.
It feels like a small start, but it's great to see that over the 10 years, you've built a great firm. How is TSV Capital different from other firms? What do you look for that's different from other VC firms?
Yeah. So I think we have been very bottom up, right? Very much bottom up. I think we were all the partners, we're all engineers, PhDs. Most of us have done startups, raising money, that nature. So it's really nowadays called entrepreneur friendly mentality. And also it's very community. Day one, we always have more partners participating with different domain expertise in various sectors. So that's how we got us started. Until today, after 10 years, we always go back, review in terms of how we do investment, how to make this firm successful. So today we describe it as we are. So the key difference is we are broad and with depth. By that, I mean, typically of our fund size, 2 or 3 partners, but we have 5 general partners plus additional 12, and in the future, maybe more venture partners to be the core decision-making network. So that's how we can cover more sectors.
Can you give an example of 1 or 2 startups? How do you meet an entrepreneur? Where do you meet them? And what do you look for? And what stages do you like to meet these founders?
Yeah, we prefer to meet them very, very early stage. The seed, nowadays, you can say seed or pre-seed. So that's our position as a fund. By today, we have quite a broad or deep network to do deal sourcing, about 30% coming from our network, Chinese immigrant talents in the Bay Area, various schools. For example, Zoom CEO Eric, so I met him at a social event. And then when he started a company, we connected and invested in the company.
This is a really good example. Zoom has become so successful. What did you see in Eric at that time with Zoom? Zoom was not the first collaboration tool company. There were many other solutions like that already existed. What appealed to you?
Exactly. So we all know even Apple has a FaceTime. For Zoom, at that time, it's called SASB. I see Eric, he came here as an engineer. So he learned to do coding and be an engineer and then be a VP. So every step along the way, proving his leadership capabilities. After the acquisition by WebEx, he was a VP, but he was willing to give up a lot of compensation and was determined to do a next generation of collaboration video platform. So it's really about the people, the drive and determination that was the major decision point for us.
You like to track entrepreneurs over many years to see how their career progresses. And then when they start a company, it's a lot easier for you to form a conviction in their business.
Of course, nowadays you cannot have many years to know someone. Things are moving very fast. But the number one thing we look at is the team and founder. We always need to know what's the reason they want to start this company, what is the drive, the background. So in our decision process, this always comes as number one. Although we are very early stage, but the entrepreneur has to make their decision first, willing to take that risk. So on that part, we don't encourage you to say, hey, it's time for you to start a company. You should start a company. We are not in a position to do any of that work. That has to come 100% from the entrepreneur. We heard a lot of people say, oh, what do you like to hear? What is the company you like? Or that. Every company is different. So the entrepreneur must make their mental decision first. Of course, things could change, but to start a company, take on this difficult journey, that decision has to be formed by the entrepreneur.
A lot of VCs, including me, we ask questions about their background. We want to make sure the founding team has diverse skill sets. Besides all of those things, I'm sure you ask for those questions as well. In addition to all of that, is there something that you like to learn about entrepreneurs? What do you ask them in the first few meetings?
How did you come about to decide to do this business? How did your founding team come together? What is the connection there? What is the vision for this company? So those are commonly asked questions.
What tips would you like to give to entrepreneurs before they come to meet you? What can they do to prepare themselves?
I think that because we are very early stage, so certain company belong to an existing market, then you need to be clear about why you are 10x better or 10x cheaper at least. But many things are in the cross sectors, emerging market. Then you need to articulate a very good vision because at the time you have maybe some user, maybe you have an idea for prototype, or maybe you build something very basic and you don't have revenue, all that. So not a lot of financial numbers you can demonstrate. So, but we look for the vision and also you articulate the vision and also why this is the time for you to do this. So this is some basic things we care about.
Yeah, good entrepreneurs are exceptionally articulate with their vision. Is there an example you can give us about a startup where you heard the vision and it was very appealing to you?
Yeah, let me use one recent example. There's a company called PreVita, very, very early stage. The entrepreneur came to us and said, we are going to manage the better way to manage the patients with chronic diseases. If you arrange a bigger surgery and all that, there are a lot of prep work you have to do. You have to do this check. You have to do certain things, come into place that you can do this surgery. By the time you go to the doctor and then suddenly the checklist, something missed, then you have to be delayed and rescheduled and sometimes causing life problems, even problems. So those risks. So this entrepreneur, they say, we're going to do a management system working with the doctors, the hospitals. It's very not easy to sell, but once you have traction, it's very sticky. So that thing we clearly can relate to, and then we also do DD and then validate this is a huge value. This is another way to put it. It's software eats certain verticals. In this case, it's the chronic disease patient management.
Yeah, this is very interesting. You're giving real life examples of conversations you've had with entrepreneurs. How many entrepreneurs do you typically meet in a year, and how many investments do you make?
Yeah, last year, for example, we invested in 11 to 12 companies. So our pace has been 1 or 2 per month. By that, we will meet hundreds of startups. We are typically investing in about 2 to 10% in that range. I think the companies we invest. Over the 10 years, we have invested in over 180 companies.
Oh, you've probably met thousands of companies. How long does it take to go from the first meeting to the second meeting to the final meeting where you say, yes, you want to make an investment?
It also varies. We have this culture in place. We tell the entrepreneur, we can work with your schedule. As early stage venture, we have to be very nimble. So we tell them, if you want us to move in 1 week, we will work with your schedule. We can call our internal meetings, every night. So that is built in our practice. But typically, nowadays, if it's Zoom, we meet them 2 times at least. Sometimes we have a third meeting, but the 2 times are common to get them to know them more. 2020 was the year that most of the entrepreneurs, for one case, even the entrepreneur was very nearby in Los Altos. We didn't get to meet yet in face.
Yeah, that was my next question. How has COVID had an impact on your work? If you typically meet hundreds of entrepreneurs a year to make 12 investments, it's really hard to make those decisions without ever meeting the people in person.
Of course, human connection, all that is very, very important. Definitely missing certain pieces, the body language piece. But after 3 Zoom meetings, and then along the way, we ask questions, especially on the closing phase. Along the way, we can learn a lot about the entrepreneur. So sometimes even you have indication to invest, and then along the way to, for example, closing the deal, all the details coming along, then we can show, and then we could pull the trigger along the way. But I think, for early stage, we feel we don't lose much by making decisions remotely. Yeah, we feel comfortable with doing it remotely.
I've always used remote interactions with entrepreneurs, and I've always invested outside Silicon Valley consistently. I do invest in the Silicon Valley, but I'm always open to other cities in the US and outside the US. But never meeting an entrepreneur ever before making an investment is quite difficult. So I'm learning to adjust to the new normal. It's a challenge indeed for everyone.
Yeah, definitely you have something to missing, but we are also in a very active and competitive environment. On one hand, we have more entrepreneurs, but a lot of startups are looking for partners too. And then on the other hand, we have a lot of venture companies. So yeah, that's the dynamics. And then it's evolving very, very fast. The seed, A, check size also changed. So we, as a culture, we decided to move at the entrepreneur's pace if we like the company. So we don't have a fixed process. It's just has to be 2 weeks. There's no such a thing. Yeah.
So I see that you play with the pace of the founders. And if they need to accelerate, you can. But if they have more time, you will be able to spend time to do your due diligence and get to know them better.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So you have 5 partners at the firm. How do you divide the responsibility? Do each one of you focus on different sectors? Do you all collaborate on making decisions? Do 5 partners, all of them need to agree when you make an investment?
Yeah.
Or can some people disagree? How do you manage that?
Very good question. Over the years, I think in terms of uniqueness as a fund, we built an internal system management system over the years and learned a lot of lessons. We treat ourselves also as a startup growing. And then the most important thing is to build an internal, either you call it culture or operating model with it. So today we are among the peers of this fund size. We are by far more people involved. How to manage that? We have an internal system called a TED to manage incentives, all that. We also publish that internally 100% transparency. On the decision part, right, we, as a culture thing, we encourage debating. We encourage convincing each other. In a small percentage cases, we have to resort to voting. We have an internal voting mechanism. It's close to a majority type, but the no vote has to be more than 1 to veto. So in certain cases, we just cannot convincing, even with the strong evidence one way or another. Yeah, we resort to voting. Yeah. So that's the very important piece to make it fun. And then afterwards, everybody had to live with the facts and move on. So yeah, that's also over the years, we work it out that way.
Yeah, I see it's a collaborative process, and you've developed the methodologies over the years and refined it to make it more transparent. What can entrepreneurs expect when they come to TSV? Does the relationship start with one partner, but even along the way they meet other partners also? Do they need to pitch and convince one partner, or do they need to pitch and convince everybody in one room at the same time? How do entrepreneurs prepare when they come to TSV?
Yeah, so usually because we have quite a big team in various sectors, we want to capture all the emerging sectors, right, very early on. So once a company gets coming in, always we have one partner with the interest, and then inviting other partner with related expertise to the meeting very quickly. So we don't need the entrepreneur to come into Eugene to talk and then arrange a separate meeting with another general partner. But we are just one. If I'm the deal sourcing, it's me. I'm just like any other partner in terms of deal contribution. We follow the same formula and credit allocation, all that. So I'm the person inviting relevant partners to come and join this deal team. So there's always this one face to talk to. It's my responsibility, if I'm that deal owner, inviting related partners to join this deal team, we call it. So that's the mechanism.
Okay, this is incredibly helpful. Over the years, venture capital has changed a lot, and you've seen it over 3 decades. Yet it is still not perfect. There are many more things that we can improve. If you were to change one thing in venture capital, what would it be?
So clearly more diversified funds and more diversified entrepreneurs, right? We have all the news press by people chasing certain deals, valuation jumping from 20 to 40 million for the first round, I think. But on the other hand, maybe other types of companies are not in that camp. Maybe they don't fit into this kind of profile. But the word is interesting. I think a lot of big companies such as Shopify or C Limited, they're all not typical Silicon Valley type. So we are definitely in that role to bring the diversity into the ecosystem. A part of doing that, encouraging the good entrepreneur coming in different shapes and from different locations, from different backgrounds, encourage more people to play in this ecosystem.
Yes, we certainly need more diversity in the ecosystem, which is good for everybody, for returns for our limited partners, for venture capital investors to promote innovation, and for entrepreneurs to have opportunities to build businesses. So hope that happens more and more in the future. I want to switch to the next segment of the podcast and ask you about your community involvement. Is there a nonprofit organization you are passionate about? Which one?
Yeah, so actually that one has to do deeply with the fund, how the fund was formed. So we have Tsinghua Entrepreneur and Executive Club. It's a nonprofit organization. So I was very early on a member and was a local president for quite a few terms. So that the roots I continue until today. Right now, the activity involves just providing advice and to young people. Nowadays, it's no longer limited to Tsinghua, only the Tsinghua schoolmates, including almost all the universities, graduates, and alumni in the Valley. The work is almost a week or bi-weekly sessions with young people, answer their questions. They also do pitch, providing some advice in that nature. So it's been ongoing for many, many years.
Well, this is great. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I look forward to sharing your real-life, authentic stories about entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Gobi. Thank you for having me. It's fun.
Thank you for listening to The Sure Shot Entrepreneur. I hope you enjoyed listening to real-life stories about early believers supporting ambitious entrepreneurs. Please subscribe to the podcast and post a review. Your comments will help other entrepreneurs find this podcast. I look forward to catching you at the next episode.